Good evening. Please take a moment to ensure that your cell phones and other electronic devices have been placed on silent setting. Also note that Section 2-80 of the Code of the Borough of Ramsey establishes procedures for still photography, videotaping, and audio taping of public meetings. In accordance with the code, audio taping of this meeting is permitted. Videotaping of this meeting requires prior notice to be submitted to the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of items on tonight's agenda of the regular Mayor and Council meeting are available for public review in the binder located on the table as you enter Council chambers. If there is something that you would like to submit to the governing body, please do not approach the dais. You may hand your item to the police officer in the room. Borough of Ramsey, Mayor and Council, regular meeting, Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. Roll call, please.
Mayor Dillon.
Here.
Councilman Gutwetter.
Here.
Councilman Jones is delayed. Councilman Kilman.
Here.
Councilman Verdoni.
Here.
Councilman Weber.
Here.
Councilwoman Woods.
Here. Thank you. Flag salute. I'll ask Officer Warnett to lead us in the flag salute.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of all citizens to have advance notice of and to attend all meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting the public is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, notice of this meeting of the Mayor and Council was published in the Legal Ad section of the Bergen Record on Wednesday, January 8, 2020. Okay, do we have approval of minutes?
Motion for approval of minutes for December 11th, regular January 2nd, sin day, and January 2nd, regular meeting.
Second.
Okay, any comments on the minutes? None? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gutwetter.
Yes.
Councilman Kilman.
Yes.
Councilman Verdoni.
Yes.
Councilman Weber.
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods.
Abstain.
Really? Communications?
I make a motion to receive and file the communications.
A second.
Thank you. Any comments on the communications?
None, Madam Mayor.
None? Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilman Gutwetter.
Yes.
Councilman Kilman.
Yes.
Councilman Verdoni.
Yes.
Councilman Weber.
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. Public comment. Anyone wishing to address the governing body, please step up to the microphone and give your name, spelling your last name, and address as a courtesy to all present. Please speak in an audible tone and address your comments to the chair. There will be a 5-minute time limit per speaker unless reduced because of the volume of business on the agenda. Please note public comment is your time. Out of respect and fairness to all present, there will be no interruptions or questions answered during your time. No time shall be ceded to anyone else, and no time shall be saved for later use. Any responses may be given during the governing body's comments later in the evening or as directed by the chair. The Borough Clerk is the official timekeeper and will hold up a sign when you have 30 seconds remaining.
George Bumiller, B-U-M-I-L-L-E-R, Ramsey, New Jersey. First, Mayor, I was wondering, will the report be presented tonight as mentioned in the agenda?
The report regarding,
The video.
yes, when Councilman Jones, he will give his update when he arrives.
Okay, fine, thank you. I have a letter to the Mayor and Council, and I'll give it to the officer shortly. Now, it covers a fair amount of information, and it identifies 2 of the municipalities that Councilman Jones had taken a look at their video of. But basically, there's been very little information provided to us, only dribs and drabs. And therefore, I'd like to get some further information, and I have listed it in the letter. When did the mayor ask the committee to take a look at videoing. Was there any formal announcement? Not that I know of, but I wish to ask whether there was a formal announcement. The charge given to the committee. Who is on the committee? Were any residents on the committee? Were any residents asked for their comments or views by the committee? And what other town meetings were attended to provide input to the report, to discuss with those towns? And then we'll have the report tonight. I would hope that it would be posted so that we can look it over carefully. Now, in going through this, I believe that it's appropriate that the residents participate in it. Let them provide their comments and suggestions to all before going ahead. I presume that there will be no action taken on the report tonight, but I really don't know. From the looking at the two towns that Councilman Jones identified, Mawa seems to have a very, very nice approach. And I go into a little bit of detail in that. And I'd also note that they now live stream the Township Committee, the Planning Board, and the Zoning Board. So I would like then simply to give you the letter, and I have copies for everyone on the dais. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blumiller.
That's it. Okay.
Thank you, officer. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Dillon and council members. My name is Lisa Kundriat, Kundriat, Ramsey, New Jersey. I'm just here following up from the December 11th meeting regarding the speed of the traffic down Arch Street, East Main Street, North Island Avenue, and also Carroll Street. Just last week, I was traveling down Arch Street. I was the second of 3 cars. I stopped at the stop sign at Arch and Island Avenue. I proceeded down Carroll, and the gentleman in back of me seemed to not appreciate how slow I was going, which was 25 miles an hour, and he passed me on Carroll Street. So with that said, I feel that there's even more of a reason to try to control the speed of the traffic down Arch Street and Carroll Street. The other thing is, I don't feel that the vehicles are prepared to stop when there's somebody either at the crosswalk or, approaching the crosswalk, crossing Main Street by the church over there is extremely difficult. The cars don't see you. They're not prepared to stop if they're coming out of town. If they want to beat the light and they want to get through that green light, if it's green for them, and the traffic coming into town doesn't see anybody in that crosswalk because they're coming, the speed limit, I don't know if that's considered Main Street or Lake Street at that point, but when you cross over Franklin Turnpike, if they're coming through the light and they come around that bend, they don't see the people in that crosswalk by the church. So I cross that area, at least once a day. I'm bringing my dog down our street several times a day, and I just hear the cars whizzing past me. It's also a hazard in the morning when the kids are crossing Arch Street because they park down the side streets to go to school. So I guess I'm just following up. I haven't seen any police activity on the street, either with their radar guns, clocking the vehicles traveling down, excuse me, traveling down the street, and I'm just following up on that. My other question is regarding landscapers and the use of their mowers and leaf blowers. Is it Monday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday after 8 a.m.? And is that for commercial landscapers only, or also property resident owners that they shouldn't be out there before 8 o'clock? That was my only other question or clarification I wanted to make.
Thank you. As I mentioned to you before the meeting, I did reach out to Chief Gurney, the traffic officer, the day after our council meeting last month, and asked them to begin the process of looking at speeding and examining the whole thing. So I will follow up with them tomorrow to see where they are on that process, because I did ask them to do that. I told them, you know, I've laid out your concerns to them regarding Arch, Island, the crosswalk, width of the road. I laid all of that out for them. So I'll ask them. Regarding the landscaper use of blowers, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. Okay. Mr. Scandariato?
Mr. Scandariato, it's, it applies to everyone. And it's, I believe it's 9 o'clock on Saturday.
9 o'clock on
Yes.
Saturday? Okay.
Not 8.
Can I
9.
just make one other comment then?
I'm sorry?
Can I make one other
Sure.
comment then? It wasn't this past Saturday, I think it was a week ago Saturday. It was before 7:20 in the morning, and I literally just picked up the phone and called the police, and I was like, it's Saturday, right? Because sometimes, you know, you wake up and it's like, what day is it? Do I gotta go to work? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, and it's not even 7:30. I'm like, and I hear leaf blowers going on outside, and I didn't know where it was coming from. I said, I don't know if it's down Arch Street, Christopher in the back, and a few minutes later, 5 minutes later, it stopped, and it started up again about 2 minutes to 8, and I couldn't go back to sleep. I looked out my bedroom window. I'm like, well, there's nobody over there. There's nobody over there. I'm like, where are they? At the church, at the park? I'm like, where are they? And I went out my front door, and it was my new neighbors, the Board of Education, who was cleaning their property of the week. So to me, Saturday morning and Sunday morning is golden. I mean, that's my time to sleep in another hour or two. And I did not appreciate that.
It was the property on Franklin Turnpike, the Board of Ed?
Yes.
Okay, I'll
That's
reach
right
out
next
to
door
Dr.
me.
Murphy.
So, and if you're saying it's not until 9 o'clock on Saturday or Sunday, then they were there before 7:20.
It is.
I'll reach out to Dr. Murphy.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Chance Parker, PRKR, Ramsey, New Jersey. Last month I initiated and encouraged Mayor and Council to submit a resolution to apply for a grant pertaining to bike pathway and pedestrian pathways in and around the borough. I was initially enthusiastic that you guys actually followed through on this, but when you announced part of that grant, you indicated that you weren't opting for the bike pedestrian pathway feasibility study, but rather elected to pursue a walkability workshop on Southeast Crescent near Allendale. So I'd like to know why. It seems a very arbitrary location to conduct a walkability workshop. So I'm certainly interested to hear some feedback on that, because typically I get up here at the beginning of a meeting and make a bunch of comments, and throughout the course of the meeting, none of those comments, questions, or concerns are answered and or addressed. That's pretty much the status quo. Mayor, I'm sorry, you're smiling or smirking, laughing, because you think that's not true. I would encourage you to look at all the audio recordings of all my various comments that go unaddressed, unanswered historically. So again, Would love to hear some feedback on that. Community center pool project. I'd like to know where in this building set of plans is there a soil erosion and sediment control plan. This phase, just like the initial and previous one, doesn't seem to be in anything whatsoever. So there's the stockade piles of soil are just sitting on blacktop, leaching into stormwater drains and into our water supply. There's no silt fencing around. There's like a 10-foot little patch of silt fencing around the entire site of disturbance of the construction project. This is a high-profile municipal capital improvement project, and you drive by there and it's like some ragtag, a couple contractors with a truck. So I don't know why there's any oversight with this. This is the protection of our drinking water, our municipal water supply. This is a drainage project. I don't understand why the residents of Ramsey are unfortunately default in relying on community members to bring this to the attention of the mayor and council. So I emailed Jack, borough engineer, as well as the inspections last Thursday. I received no reply whatsoever. It's very, very disconcerting that this continues to be a problem that we can't properly manage to the letter of the law, DEP requirements to protect stormwater and site runoff on a construction site. This is blocking and tackling construction in New Jersey and the United States 101 type stuff. I also made comments a month ago that went unaddressed or unanswered regarding lighting standards, not only obviously applicable more so with the planning board, but what the borough is doing to work with Orange and Rockland as they come by and retrofit existing metal halide, high pressure sodium HID lights with LED. There's one particular fixture at the intersection of East Oak and Aspen, which is 3 to 4 times, putting out 3 to 4 times the light levels in foot candles that's recommended by the Illuminating Engineering Society in North America and their RP8 recommended practices 8, depending on how you categorize the roadway traffic volume and pedestrian conflict. Yeah, it's 2 to 4, maybe even 5 times more than it should be. So again, I don't see anything happening proactively. I certainly haven't heard any comments to that as light intensity, light color, lighting in general has a dramatic impact on human health. And it should be addressed proactively instead of reactively. And then, other than that, I went to, as I normally do, a couple of committee meetings, and I'm kind of interested what the policy is or how it relates to, rules, Robert's Rules of Order when meetings are adjourned, but meeting members don't necessarily leave for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time after the public is gone. So it leaves the perception that, there's additional things being discussed that may have ramifications to the public outside of an official meeting. So those are my comments. I would love them to be addressed this evening.
Can you please tell me which boards and commissions you have that concern with?
I have the concern with all of them.
Well, you said you just attended a few meetings, so can you tell me so I can follow up?
It was specifically last week or earlier this week was last week was the pool commission meeting.
Okay.
Where all members stayed approximately 15 minutes after the meeting was adjourned. Like, meeting adjourned, some pleasantries are said. I mill around to see what happens. Nothing happens. I leave. Conduct, side conversations outside of Borough Hall, and nobody moves. Nobody leaves the room. So again, there's.
Okay, so pool commission, any other one?
All of them, yes.
No, give me. You said you attended a few, so give me so I can actual follow up.
I attend committee meetings every month.
Okay, so I'll follow up with all the.
Yeah, I'm saying as a general
thank you. I will
practice,
follow up. I will follow up.
Your council hasn't been best about transparency and accurately recording.
Well, your 5 minutes is over, Mr. Parker.
Okay,
so
well,
I said I will follow up.
This is dialogue.
Your 5 minutes is over. Thank you. I will follow up.
You asked me a question, I answered it.
Yes, thank you. And you're going on, and your 5 minutes is up.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Vose, would you like to respond to any of Mr. Parker's comments?
Well, I can address the soil erosion things. Jack did get his email forwarded to myself, and he sent it over to Dresner Robin. They performed a site visit that same day, Thursday the 16th. They also then spoke on Friday with the contractor and provided a site observation report with action items on soil erosion measures to take.
Thank you. Anything regarding the walkability study on Crescent?
I can respond to something.
Councilman Bordoni?
Yes, on the walkability study, I was down at the League of Municipalities, and where we talked about doing that resolution prior to when we did it. And in talking to them, they felt that we should do walkability first and then move on to the bike. And as we looked at our walkability, the issues we have in the town where we have most of the problems, they're on East Crescent, and that was what we decided to do. It had nothing to do against bike or anything like that, and that was their recommendation.
Allendale? That's where.
It's not Allendale, it starts in
Those were the
Ramsey.
exact comments on record during that meeting.
I'm sorry, what?
From Allendale to Lake Street is the scope of the.
From Allendale to Lake Street.
Oh, okay.
That's Ramsey.
Right, I mean, it's a southeast corner of town, it's not a high priority or a high use area for pedestrians.
But it's where we have problems.
Mr. Parker, there have been a number of people who've contacted us about that East Crescent area. It may not be a high priority to you, but it certainly is to a number of other people.
You guys didn't even know about the grant until I brought it up, so the fact that you.
Okay,
had a
thank you, Mr.
conversation
Parker.
with the League
They're
of
answering
Municipalities
your questions.
is
Your
misleading-
complaint was
is
that no one
misleading.
answers your questions. Your questions are being answered.
They're not truthful.
Oh,
Are
wait a
you
minute
calling them
now.
liars?
What do you mean not truthful?
What's not
You
true?
didn't know-
Excuse
you-
me.
You didn't know about the grant until
We're
I
not just, they're
proposed it.
telling you why they did this
League of
walkability
Municipalities was
sustainable.
2
Okay,
months
thank you,
prior to
Mr.
that.
Parker.
No, it was not.
No, it was not. And there was
A
this,
month prior, sorry.
No, it was mid to end of November.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I will follow up with Rockland Electric with my contacts there regarding the retrofitting of the lights. Anyone else from the public? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. Let's move on to advertised public hearing for final consideration of ordinances. Ordinance 01-2020. Mr. Kilman, Councilman Kilman?
Yeah.
Ordinance 01-2020 be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending section 34-4 of chapter 34 of the Code of the Borough of Ramsey, Bergen County, New Jersey, and more particularly subsection 34-4.26 thereof entitled fences. Having been brought up for public hearing and all persons interested having been given an opportunity to be heard, pass final reading by title, and that said ordinance be adopted as an ordinance of the Borough of Ramsey. And be it further resolved that the Borough Clerk be, and she hereby is directed to cause a copy of title of said ordinance to be published in an official newspaper of the Borough in the manner provided by law, together with a notice of the date of introduction and adoption of said ordinance.
Do we have a second?
second.
Thank you. Comment, Councilman Kilman?
Yeah, briefly, Madam Mayor, as I had said the last time, this amendment adds language to clause 5 of this same section, simply a clarification of the no fence beyond the front building line or in the front yard shall exceed 4 feet in height, including berm. There was some confusion about that. Also, the language in clause 7 is expanded for clarity that pool fence permits are required and issued by the building department, not the zoning officer. And that's it.
Okay, at this point, we'll open up ordinance 01-2020 for public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on this ordinance, please step up and make your remarks. Your comments can only be limited to this ordinance, though. Okay, not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. Roll call, please.
Councilman Gottletter.
Yes.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
Councilman Kilman.
Yes.
Councilman Bordoni.
Yes.
Councilman Weber.
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 02-2020.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance number 02-2020. Be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to Authorize Capital Improvements for the Purpose of Acquisition of Equipment for Various Departments and Improvements to the Senior Center and Site Work Project in the Borough of Ramsey, Bergen County, New Jersey, and appropriate the sum of $235,000 to pay the cost thereof, having been brought up for public hearing and all persons interested having been given an opportunity to be heard, pass final reading by title, and that said ordinance be adopted as an ordinance of the Borough of Ramsey. And be it further resolved that the Borough Clerk be and she hereby is directed to cause a copy of the title of said ordinance to be published in an official newspaper of the Borough in the manner provided by law, together with the notice of the date of introduction and adoption of said ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. Comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have some comments on this ordinance. This ordinance is allocating funds previously budgeted for to the specific purposes stated in the ordinance. It's not creating new borrowings or debt, just allocation of previously budgeted funds. The proposed funding of this ordinance is as follows. Approval of Rescue Squad 2019 capital request, including the purchase of Hearst equipment, which replaces a 20-year-old equipment, SCBA cylinders, again past life cycle, and purchase of replacement radios and past life rescue ropes. Allocation of $42,000 for these items. Approval of purchase of an additional life-saving Lucas automated compression machine for the use of the Ramsey Ambulance Corp. And allocation of $18,000. Approval replacement of Borough's computer servers and related equipment which have reached their end of their useful life allocation of $75,000. Allocation of capital for the senior center and site work project of $100,000. The total base contract with APS for this work was encumbered out of the bond ordinance issued in 2019 for this work. The base contracted amount utilized virtually all the funding on the ordinance, and we are recommending allocation of capital for the potential of future change orders so that if the governing body does review and approve project improvements and/or change orders, we have already a funding mechanism in place. Again, to reiterate, this does not approve any additional spending for the project. Those would be done through future resolutions. This just puts in place a funding mechanism. If these funds are not utilized for the project, they may be further reallocated by ordinance in the future to another project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll open up the hearing, ordinance 02-2020 to public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on this ordinance? Not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. Roll call, please.
Councilman Gottwetter.
Yes.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
Councilman Kilman.
Yes.
Councilman Verdoni.
Yes.
Councilman Weber.
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any appointments this evening. At this point, I'd like to have a motion to go out of order for the Borough Administrator to give his report prior to the consent resolution, so we can cover a lot of what's in the consent resolutions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilman Gottwetter.
Yes.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
Councilman Kilman.
Yes.
Councilman Verdoni.
Yes.
Councilman Weber.
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. You're up, Borough Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, a couple things. Quick update on the senior center site work project. We spoke a little about the soil erosion. I would also, they've completed the foundation work for the senior center addition. They poured the concrete slab, and they are actually framing as of yesterday or today. If you go by today, that some of the outside walls are wood framed already. So that's moving along. We've had, knock on wood, decent weather, and they've been able and pretty diligent about being there and moving forward with the project. Okay, a couple resolutions that are on the agenda tonight I'll talk about. First, Resolution 36-2020 authorizes bond anticipation notes. As you know, we issue bond anticipation notes, and they're for a term of 1 year. This note is refinancing a previous bond anticipation note and reflects pay down of municipal debt principal in the amount of $915,000, which will be reflected in the 2020 budget. The bond is put out to financial institutions for bid, and the borough selects the lowest bid in terms of net interest cost. The net interest cost for this 1 year borrowing is 1.285% that the borough is paying, and we received a total of 5 bids, with the low bid from Oppenheimer and Company on this bid. Resolution 37 authorizes a change order for the community center furniture with Danker LLC. We had approved the overall resolution for the community furniture earlier, or at the end of last year. The final selection of finishes, frame color selections resulted in a small price change. The total price increased by $972,043, and that's a change order resolution on the agenda tonight.
972,200.
What?
You said
Oh,
thousand.
$972.43, sorry. Resolution 38, 2020 is a budget appropriation reserve transfer resolution. Again, this is what we do at the end of the year, beginning of the next year, typically when we transfer between different budget accounts based on some accounts are underspent, some are slightly over, so we move some money around at the end of the year to do that, and that's what this does. There's no net change, and it's all from previously budgeted funds. It just moves between line items. Resolution 39, 2020. We had done a resolution number 198 in 2019, which allows the police department to request excess equipment at no charge from the Department of Defense. There's a number of different things. The federal administrators of the program wanted one sentence in there changed as to what is eligible. They wanted us to detail the list by code numbers, so we've done that and modified the resolution and are adopting it this year as Resolution 39, 2020. Resolution 40, 2020 is a one-time payment to the pool manager for additional scope of work changes regarding his job during 2019 as the construction delay caused ongoing simultaneous construction along with coordination of pool operations and modifying different operational plans and implementing interim facilities. So the pool commission has recommended a one-time payment in conjunction with the governing body, and that payment will be split between the pool and municipal budgets. Resolution 41, 2020 authorizes the purchase of 2 solar-powered Your Speed Is signs to be installed on Airmont Avenue. And that would cover the resolutions on the agenda tonight. Just a couple other comments for upcoming things. The municipal budget for 2020 work is well underway, should be completed over the next couple weeks. We would anticipate on a timing basis that the budget there would be a budget presentation at the February 12th work session, and then subsequent introduction of the budget at the February 26th Mayor and Council meeting, with the public hearing and vote on adoption on the agenda for the March 25th Mayor and Council meeting. Also, the Board of Public Works well activation and treatment project continues. They have recommended to the Mayor and Council that a bond ordinance be introduced and adopted in February for the reactivation of Spring Street and Orchard Wells, which are part of this project, which will increase the borough's owned water supply by 36%, or about 600,000 gallons per day. The implementation and construction of this would be proposed in an ordinance to be introduced at the February 12th meeting. Previously, the water pod treatment containers themselves were part of the original ordinance. This is the ordinance to construct the sites and the connections and everything else for the water pods and reactivate those 2 wells which have been out of service. Okay, and as I said, that would be expected to be introduced at the February 12th meeting. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you so much. There's, so here we go. Okay, we'll move on then to consent resolutions.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, do we have a motion to return to normal course of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Gottwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Jones?
Yes.
Councilman Kilman?
Yes.
Councilman Verdoni?
Yes.
Councilman Weber?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Thank you. Consent resolutions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Be it resolved that Resolution 034, 2020 through and including 041, 2020, as they appear on tonight's agenda, having been considered by the governing body of the Borough of Ramsey, be and are hereby passed and approved. Be it further resolved that the following applications and or recommendations hereby be approved. There's a special permit application from the Ramsey Area Garden Club is requesting permission to hold their annual plant sale at the Ramsey train station on Saturday, May 9th, 2020, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. They will include the sale of jewelry and crafts and are in process of applying to NJ Transit for permission, and there are no block party requests. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments on the consent resolutions? No? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilman Gottwetter.
Yes.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
Councilman Kilman.
Yes.
Councilman Verdoni.
Yes.
Councilman Weber.
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. Committee and liaison reports. Finance and Administration, Councilman Gottwetter.
Me again. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight we did the final reading of the proposed capital improvement ordinance. Again, this does not approve additional spending, simply puts the spending mechanism in place. This ordinance allocates funds previously budgeted for the specific purposes stated in the ordinance. There is no new debt or borrowing as a result of this ordinance. The municipal budget process is underway and is expected that a budget presentation will be done at the February 12th work session. The Ramsey Library had the reorganization meeting earlier this month, and the officers and director Matthew Latham stay in place. 2020 programs and events are well underway, or planning will begin as the year progresses. And lastly, the Recreation Commission met earlier this week, and winter and spring activities are underway. The annual Easter egg hunt at Finch Park is scheduled for April 4th, but that date may change due to schools being out of session in the beginning of April. And the 50th anniversary of the Home Run Derby is set for June 20th. And lastly, summer camp at Finch Park is tentatively set to begin on Monday, July 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councilman Weber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Environmental Commission met last week on the 14th, swore in some new members. Carolyn Coletti, Ramsey High School senior, continues to attend and bring us up to date on the project that she's working on as far as the community composting program, presenting several alternatives and vetting additional information. Green Team continues to look for some new members. We did discuss the proliferation of the plastic bag ordinance that's been going on in other towns, and there were no new site plans presented to the Environmental Commission. Rife, we had a really fun night at Humdinger's this past Friday night. We had 28 of our challengers and families attended. Everybody had a good time. It's a very, very enjoyable event. The Municipal Alliance has not met. We're scheduled to meet next week, and the first event that they're working with is the a vaping event that'll be held on February 19th at the Ramsey High School cafeteria. And as far as public safety, I just want to thank the council for passing Ordinance 02. I know that the rescue and ambulance are seriously appreciative of the hearse, the scuba equipment, and the new Lucas machine. Thank you.
Thank you. Building, Planning, and Zoning, Councilman Verdoni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The planning board meeting on January 21st was, we had 12 waivers that were approved. They were all office spaces with tenants moving in and out. And we had one public hearing. There's the Alejandro and Andrea Frezzi residents located at 24 Grant Street for a site plan variance. This application came before the planning board several months ago. There were several issues since it was continued use of a single-family home with the addition of a commercial use in the rear of the site for a landscaper contractor's yard. The property is located in a B3 highway commercial district, which allows both residential and commercial. During the hearing, additional issues and concerns came up during the testimony, and the applicant chose to have another hearing scheduled, and that was done for March 17th. Ramsey Seniors and Senior Center, the next scheduled event is a technology class on computer security at the Senior Center to be held on February 4th. My committee is finalizing the first draft of the Ramsey Community Senior Center operating guidelines and rules and regulations. The plan is to circulate it to the mayor and council by the end of this week or early next week. The FW Post meeting was held on Wednesday, January 8th. We had about 20 veterans in attendance. Several veterans came from Mawa and Allendale. Anthony Bailey, the past post commander, gave a presentation on how veterans can more effectively get entitled benefits through the Veterans Administration. And it's rumored that the Franklin Lakes VFW post is in the process of closing, and some of their members are considering joining our Ramsey Post. We also had a surprise birthday party and cheat cake for Bob Brown, our World War II veteran who turned 90 years old on January 11th. And finally, Ramsey Responds on Monday, January 20th, in the spirit of Martin Luther King Day, from 4 to 5:30 p.m. K through 12 students join Ramsey residents in supporting the work of Ramsey Responds at the Ramsey Library. They watch and listen to Martin Luther King deliver his 5 most famous speeches. They also kicked off a food and toiletry drive benefiting Ramsey families in need. Collection boxes for the drive will be at ShopRite and the Ramsey Library from January 21st to February 1st. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities, Buildings and Grounds, Councilman Kilman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Several things. Zoning board took place. There were no variance requests. It was a reorg meeting, and Angela Strollo was re-elected chairwoman. Shade Tree was a reorg meeting where they re-elected Joe Melso. And the Board of Public Works this month will be at a different time. It's on Thursday, January 30th. And I just want to take a minute to add a few more comments to the Complete Streets information that Mr. Parker was looking for. Quite honestly, from between what Complete Streets had in the brochure and the application process, I personally was quite surprised at how narrow in scope and how stringent they restricted us in requesting certain things. And as Joe said, their counsel to us was, you start with walkability, then you look at this, then you look at that. And we said, okay, fine, we'll look at that. And then when we started to look at actually, do we look at the whole town? Do we take a look at the whole, it was you have to pick one street and it has to be 3/4 of a mile. And there were a number of things that we were very, I was a little taken back, but I said, okay, we'll play the game here. And we went through it. So why did we pick East Crescent? And I'm going to read from a document that I've actually been building for the past couple of years. I've had conversations with Councilman Verdoni and Mr. Bozay, because East Crescent is a real problem. It is probably the most frequent street development request I've received from residents. And before me, it was Councilman Tiberzi. We need a sidewalk on East Crescent Avenue. And let me just read from my document here so I don't miss anything. There's a lot of information. There are a significant number of streets that intersect East Crescent Avenue with a large number, actually hundreds of Ramsey families that have no safe walking access to Ramsey schools, to the center of town, to mass transit, which I'm talking about is the New Jersey transit buses on Lake Street, Route 17. And to complicate matters a bit, East Crescent is a county road. The Ramsey streets that intersect East Crescent Avenue are the main arteries with other various streets that come off them. Those main artery streets are New England Drive, Cranberry Court, Lakeview Terrace, Chapel Lane, Column Court, Colonial Heights Road, Crescent Hollow, Harlan Terrace, Briarcliff Court, Scenic Court, Biscayne Drive, Collins Avenue, Nottingham Road, Sherwood Drive, and Overlook Court. And the primary concern is that East Crescent is too dangerous to walk on. It is wide in some places and very narrow in others with very poor lighting at night. It is also a main service road for traffic when accidents shut down Route 17. Moms and dads who want to walk and push their children in strollers in this area can't do it on East Crescent without walking directly in a heavily trafficked street. Walking or riding a bike to town is not safe. A number of Ramsey residents living on the east side of town find themselves at a disadvantage because they are forced to drive in order to get to any location in town. So to that end, after speaking with Mr. Bozay and Councilman Verdoni and talking to the folks at Complete Streets and various input from others, we've thought that the analysis and information gathered from the Sustainability Jersey Complete Streets Technical Assistant Grant would help us with our conversations with the county to see if we could collaborate and get something done on East Crescent. And that's why we chose East Crescent. That's it.
Anything else? Thank you, Councilman Kilman. Public and Governmental Relations, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Dillon. Sorry I was a little late tonight. I was attending the Chamber of Commerce holiday party and I didn't think it would be appropriate to walk out during the speeches that were being made. The president and the board members were up in front of the room, so I apologize for that. The farmers market continues indoors. We've had a request from the farmers market committee to potentially expand the outdoor market into April and May. We are going to look at that. There are determining factors such as some additional costs that would be involved in that. Also, the Taste of Ramsey is on a Sunday in May that there presently isn't a conflict for. Those are some things that have to be looked at and worked out in the coming weeks. We are looking at, for our Independence Day celebration, July 2nd, which would be a Thursday night. The holiday is officially being celebrated on July 3rd, so everyone would be off that day. We would assume we would get a healthy crowd. It does create some issues, as we've tended to try and have the event on a Saturday with a Sunday rain date, but this year that's 4th of July is on a Saturday, and many of the fireworks companies are already booked with many towns, so our competitive pricing advantage would be lost. So we're looking at the 2nd, and then to finalize a rain date, if necessary. It may have to be the following weekend or to be determined. So we'll work that out in the coming weeks, and I'll have more on that for everyone shortly. I would just quickly address one thing Mr. Parker brought up. The side conversations that you said you were having for 10 or 15 minutes after the pool commission meeting was the same basic conversations that were going on with the pool commission. I was in attendance. We were welcoming a new member who was introducing herself to all of the members that were present, and there are no business transactions. It was also no December meeting, so everyone kind of caught up on the holidays, and was just idle, as you say, conversations. No business is discussed, certainly after the meetings, and I would say most meetings have a 5 or 10 minute milling about as people just say hello. Has been my 35 plus years experience post-meeting situations. Finally, I had, as promised at the last meeting, or I said we would have an update on the full report, an update on the status of the borough's attempts to study streaming or televising and videoing the meetings. To dispel any myths that things die in committee and we don't really do any work, I think Councilman Kilman's report will show what he just did, the amount of work that has been put into his projects, show what we kind of do. This will be an ongoing, my intention is to keep it on the agenda for as long as it takes to be complete with recommendations and moving forward. So, so everyone will know where we stand in the process. To Mr. Buhlmiller's comments that a committee of the whole and getting a whole bunch of people involved, at this point, quite honestly, I think that would only delay matters and delay an implementation. The more people get involved, I think it would just take a lot longer to come to conclusions. We've been able to do a lot in the last few months. So currently, the borough is requesting quotes from various vendors for a video system. We want to get a pricing together, so as we finalize the budget, we will have some idea if we're going to move forward at this time, what it will cost. We have looked at various communities, some around us, some in other parts of the state. You can look towns that do it several different ways. There are some fixed cameras, there are multi-cameras. There is a company that does basically a television broadcast where they have a director sitting in a camera room who moves the cameras around and catches everything. There are also a few communities that have either a volunteer group or employees that they pay to stand and videotape those. So we looked at, we've been looking at that in towns such as Ridgewood and Oakland, Wyckoff, Mahwah, Glen Rock, and then there's a few I didn't write down that are out of the area that some of the vendors have used or have sold systems to. As I said, single and multi-camera systems are being looked at, and we want to make sure that we explore all our options to best try to meet the demands of what's being asked of us from the residents. There is a challenge to this room. It's about 30 feet from front to back wall. It's relatively narrow. Many council chambers are substantially larger. Many would also be deeper. So there are some logistical concerns, but nothing that can't be overcome, I'm sure. And we'll have more on that, as I say, in the coming months. We also have the lights that are here that would block potentially some of the views. So we have put that challenge to the experts to see. I would also say in this time, I know myself and other members of the council, and certainly Mayor Dillon, have been approached by various residents who are concerned about spending taxpayer dollars on what they perceive to be watched by very few. I will note that I do observe on the YouTube channels, they can tell you subscribers and views, and in many cases they are minimal and lower numbers, but certainly even if one person gains information, it's a legitimate cause, and we don't take it. I see Mr. Parker laughing, but we do take it seriously. But that is a concern of residents, and we are here to represent all. Others are fearful that that they would feel inhibited to speak publicly. They may be concerned about voicing a complaint about their neighbors if they knew it was going to be broadcast out to the world. I pointed out to them that there are already audio recordings, and there are at least 1 or 2 residents videotaping at every meeting, but they feel it's, they voice their concern, and of course we would have to be respectful of everyone's opinion. We've also had many volunteers from the various boards and commissions voice their concerns about being on TV. They, as volunteers, they have voiced concerns about the length of meetings. I do notice some of the communities where they have 3- and 4-hour meetings that are being recorded. There are concerns about grandstanding, showmanship, and the other thing I did notice, though, in several towns that are successful, they have imposed much stricter time limits, both in the scope of how long public comment is as a block. Many offer 20 to 30 minutes, with 2 or 3 minutes for residents, where we presently have 5. Of course, in a hearing situation, you can't limit that, and that's a concern with certainly the land use boards, versus a public comment, which can be governed and controlled. Knowing that we can't please everybody is certainly difficult to come out with the best outcome. What is the return on investment? And as I had stated previously, this isn't the only room where meetings are held. There are many other rooms, not only in Borough Hall and off-site where they are. So as we move forward, developing rules of what will be covered and how it will be, and then how it will be delivered. I found it interesting to note that high-definition systems that exist today for relatively inexpensive pricing, if you were to put the same thing on the internet versus on cable, cable has to degrade down the feed, so you're losing a lot of what you're paying for with the camera systems. When you have to bring it onto cable, they have to actually slow it down, and the quality is diminished greatly. So that was just something I thought interesting. You have to pay for a system that can bring it down for cable, Verizon or Fios or Cablevision to broadcast. which makes streaming be a much more palatable potential situation. The other things we're looking at, as I said, what meetings, what will be the format, what is going to be the return on investment, will it be worth it, can we cover the whole dais in this narrow room, employees who have expressed some concerns about that, would we be able to effectuate the mayor and council from pillar to pillar, and if people had issues with concerns about being broadcast, what obligations do we have, what rights does anyone have with us as an employer to avoid lawsuits? And again, I pointed out to everyone who's said that there are certainly Mr. Buemiller, Mr. Bragan, and others have been videotaping for a number of years, and we have audio taped for a long time. So that's where we stand. At our next meeting, we'll have some more information. I made a field visit out to Wyckoff, and I've been to Mawa to see their systems. They use the fixed position, which seems to accomplish what I believe we've been told and what we've been charged with, to let people see our expressions and body language of the dais. So that's somewhat what we're looking at versus some of the other things. So that's where we stand, and as I say, it will stay an open item on under my committee until we have resolution. I would like to think it could be done, some final report to be given sometime this spring as a timeline, with an implementation, if it were to be, from what I understand, it would take a month or two from the vendors we're talking to. We could have something in place by mid-year if that's what the council does choose to do. And I've asked the council members and various other committees, technology with Councilman Kilman, Councilman Verdoni, and myself, to look at, and anyone else to look at any other towns and see what else is being done, so we can potentially deliver the product, would accomplish what's being asked and still keep it somewhat reasonable and affordable for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Woods.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I look forward to my new liaison responsibilities with the Board of Health, Design Review Board, and the Ramsey Board of Education. The Board of Health meeting was held on Thursday, January 9th, and was the reorganization meeting for the year. Excuse me. President Joan Waring announced she was stepping down as president, but will remain on the board. Tammy Azuri was sworn in as the new president, and Jeff Nemeth will remain as vice president. They are currently looking for dates for hands-only CPR classes, and looking at the last notes and minutes, they're a very active board, and I look forward to assisting them any way I can. The Design Review Board will hold their first meeting of the year on Tuesday, January 28th at 7:30 p.m. I look forward to working with them again, as I was on this board for several years. The Ramsey Board of Education held their reorganization meeting on Tuesday, January 7th. Laura Bierman was confirmed as president for another term. The next meeting is Tuesday, January 28th at 7 p.m. at Smith School. This will be a busy year for the Board of Ed, and I look forward to reporting on the upcoming construction projects and offering assistance wherever possible. Saturday, January 11th, I attended the New Jersey League of Municipalities orientation for newly elected municipal officials, which was very informative and helpful. And I also attended a seminar on Saturday, January 18th with Mayor Dillon and Councilman Verdoni about assisting with the census for 2020. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, for my comments, as Councilwoman Woods mentioned, we attended training for the Census 2020 in Hackensack. It was sponsored by the state and the county. It was very, very helpful. Just some facts about that. New Jersey receives $22.7 billion in aid from the federal government, and this is based on the census. As a result of the 2010 census, New Jersey lost one congressional seat. So we have to take this census very seriously. I've already put together some thoughts on how we're going to encourage everybody in the community to participate in the census. I've already reached out to Dr. Murphy and Board of Ed President Bierman regarding bringing in the school to help with it to get the word out. I've reached out to Nancy Boone at the Farmers Market. We'll have a few Sundays in March about it. So there's going to be a February 12th, March 12th are the big dates. April and May is when it's voluntary to fill in the census. If you don't fill in the census in April and May, expect a numerator to come knock on your door in June and July. So the goal is to get 100% participation in the town. So we'll be coming up with a comprehensive plan to do that. Also, Ramsey, we hosted the Northwest Bergen County Mayors Association meeting on January 11th. We welcomed new mayors from Glen Rock and Wyckoff. A couple of things we're going to focus on this year. One is also the census, because the county did receive a grant from the federal government to help with the census. So we're going to hopefully have the county come up and meet with us to tell us what is available to help us with the census, what we can leverage off from the county, what materials. And also we're going to be hopefully working with the county on deer control this year, because the person who's in charge of the parks and recreations, the parks of the county realizes that we do need wildlife management programs. So that is a change for the county. So that is one of the things Northwest Bergen County mayors will be focusing on. Other than that, I have nothing else. Borough Administrator.
Nothing else, thank you, ma'am.
Borough Attorney.
Nothing, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Borough Clerk.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, no introduction of ordinances, no unfinished business, no new business. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 8:81.